All right. Well, thank you to everyone who joined today's Granson-sponsored research initiative seminar. My name is Rachel. I am the administrative manager for the research program on children and adversity. And I'm really excited for today's seminar with our lovely Dean Julia DeVoy, who will be presenting today. So a bit of a background on the research program on children and adversity's GRIT seminar series. These seminar series aims to increase regional knowledge base and capacity for implementation science research, build a stronger mutual learning network, and provide training and learning opportunities for partners tied to training grant objectives to receive formal training on data and implementation science. And we are really excited because we are updating our GRIT profile in our seminar series in 2025. So stay tuned for the updated structure, and especially Boston College students, to understand how GRIT can support your learning and engagement with the RPCA and Dr. Teresa Betancourt. So more updates about the GRIT seminar series to come, and we're really excited for next steps. I also want to talk about current RPCA opportunities for those who are in Boston. Here at BC. We are hiring for a website and communications intern. This position would be directly developing a wiki page for our research lab that would span across all of our global partners and be a resource for our team both in Boston and our partner organizations in sub-Saharan Africa. The intern would be responsible for building out the website from start to finish, and they would be given full creative autonomy over the course of 2 semesters. So if you're interested in this and you want to learn more, please reach out to me directly. My email is here, and this opportunity is also posted on our website. I also want to say that we're also seeking a higher level person with a PhD to co-apply for a diversity supplement fellowship for the National Institute of Mental Health. Our research lab was recently awarded an R01 to expand our work in Rwanda for our Sojourn Muryango home visiting early childhood development and violence prevention program. And we're really excited because we're recruiting for a fellow to help support this work, and they would have the ability to lead and develop and design a research plan related to the parent study being done in Rwanda. So please reach out to me if you have any questions about this. And we also have a save the date coming up in December for our next GRIT seminar series with Dr. Nikki Dawson, who's a clinician, research, and counseling psychologist from Johannesburg, South Africa. So more information will be available in the coming weeks about the next seminar series. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Julia DeVoy, who's today's speaker. Julia is the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Programs and Students at Boston College Lynch School of Education and Human Development and Director of the Experience, Reflection, and Action first-year program. Dr. DeVoy co-designed and co-launched the Boston College Design for Impact undergraduate initiative with colleagues from Clemson, Virginia Tech, and NC State Raleigh, which has produced several winning teams in international design thinking and innovation competitions. She works across interdisciplinary areas of restorative justice and practice, ethics, design-driven thinking, strategy, and environmental health and human development. Dr. DeVoy focuses on developmental impacts amongst marginalized and lower SES class global citizens with regard to environmental and health justice concerns. In her courses embedded with social impact projects and core reflection practices, she uses human-centered, design-informed restorative justice practices and principles to explore ethical interventions for environmental and health initiatives. Dr. DeVoy's scholarly work and interests concern developmental psychology, ethics, and restorative and environmental justice. In the field, she advises on the design of social impact enterprise initiatives as interventions for helping address systemic social class inequities. She has taught over 20 different undergraduate and graduate psychology, business, cyber strategy, sociology, innovation, and education courses, supervised numerous doctoral level instructors, master's degree students, and undergraduates, and served on several doctoral dissertation committees. And we're really looking forward to today's presentation. So I'm now going to share her presentation and turn it over to Dr. DeVoy.
Great. Hi, everyone. Good morning. First, I just want to say how absolutely honored I am to be here. And I'm really grateful to Rachel and team and especially Dr. Betancourt. And I'll even give a shout out to my dear colleague, Sudan Bhattacharya, who who I think put you all in touch with me. This is very exciting for me. And again, I'm grateful and honored. And I'm really happy to see a few undergrads here. I know you have classes at 10 a.m., so I'm hoping that you're not missing classes, but if you are, um, thanks for coming. So without further ado, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. So um, about 12 years ago now, and I can't believe it's been 12 years, we started working with Matilda Lartney in Accra, Ghana. And really, that was sort of the seed or the beginning of the MFC and the MFI initiatives. And MFC is the Make Fashion Clean. It's an acronym for Make Fashion Clean because even that far back, we were really concerned about the environmental and health damages of textile waste. And the MFI Foundation is a nonprofit that we use to actually do advocacy work, or that we partner with to do advocacy work and training for women, especially women, people with disabilities, and most often women with physical or otherwise disabilities, or the mothers of children with disabilities. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go through. But MFC and MFI have been a huge part of my life for over a decade now, and play a huge role in everything that is really important to me in terms of restorative justice, inclusion, environmental health justice, and so on. So the next slide, which, oops, sorry, already go back, sorry. Yep. Uh, just a couple words about this. We do consider the social impact. We've done a lot of research in the past 6 years on the actual effects of textile waste on the environment, on health, particularly um, uh, uh, respiratory health. And I know Dr. Landrigan does a lot on that as well. And we have done a lot of work on creating jobs and Matilda has done an enormous amount of advocacy, and herself has done many, many trainings for individuals with disabilities who are most frequently marginalized in the employment sector in Ghana. So next slide. People always say, how does this fit together? And so I just, disability advocacy and genuine sustainability. And I think about sustainability very broadly. I think about it as sustainability in the environment, but also in like healthcare, in business and economics, and a very broad understanding of what that means for people and planet. And I believe that disability advocacy and true sustainability are incredibly and intimately connected. Um, as the pursuit of environmental health and social equity justice absolutely requires us to use design thinking, to use inclusive designs for equal participation. People with disabilities often face disproportionate barriers. We know that. We know that they face these kind of barriers in health and environmental um, resources and service and decision making, but they are also a huge opportunity and want to be a huge part of addressing and moving forward with solutions. So whether that's a piece of technology where part of the team in the Make Fashion Clean workshop can use to actually, in technology, and again, and the wheel was technology. A piece of technology that someone can use in the workshop that wouldn't otherwise be able to do the sort of cutting or the precision work that is uh, required of a typical machine operator. The kind of technology that can be created with inclusive design for an individual with disability to do that kind of work is something that we've also been really proud to be involved with. We work with the Olin College of Engineering a few years ago, and they shipped over some great designs and great pieces of technology that they created for the folks in the MFC shop. So next slide. Okay, so what really got us going back in 2012 was the fact that there were so many issues around disability rights and advocacy. But where that took us was in was really about environmental effects in Ghana. And so the idea that we could address this disability and marginalization of women with disabilities in Ghana through actually addressing or challenging a problem of textile waste in Ghana was born. And we started looking into it, and we saw that it was just a huge, huge, huge issue, not just for Ghana, for the global South. So each year, 92 million tons of textile waste are produced. And that is just beyond problematic. People don't really recognize the level at which this is a consumption-based issue in the global north that's shouldered by vulnerable communities in the global south. So we kind of approach things from multifaceted levels, and we're trying to create awareness around this, but also, work to address it at the same time. Next slide. So some textile facts. Actually, each of us, on average, produces about 81.5 pounds of clothes and textile waste. We throw it out every year. Um, so if you think about that, that's like the size of a child, right? That's the size of like a human being that we're offloading in our textile waste every year. Um, Fashion industry is responsible for 1/5 of the polluted water on the planet. Every single year, the fashion industry is responsible for 20% of the global wastewater, and the fashion industry adjacent. That's a problem when there's freshwater scarcity in so many areas of our planet, and that is increasing with a lot of the climate shifts and climate changes. Um, Once the textiles are disposed of, and this is data that I have from an article from 21 that the Aftermath Learning Lab put together, about 66% of it goes right into a landfill here, right here in the US. That's a lot of clothes that just go right into the landfill. Now that's a problem in and of itself, but at the very least, we know that most of the landfills in the United States actually have landfill engineering technology, which mitigates some of the environmental land, water, air damage. That's not the case in many parts of the world. Um, Landfills in the US are, and the article does a great look at where they're located in the US, and I don't think that most of you will be surprised to hear that most landfills in the US are located near poor and marginalized communities. So although we have engineering technology in these landfills to mitigate some issues, there's a lot of equity and social justice issues around that, especially given the fact that most of the clothing that is consumed in the US is consumed by the wealthier communities. So not only are we shifting the burden to poor and marginalized communities here in the United States, but when we don't do that, we shift it to the global South, to vulnerable communities in the global South. Um, we wear things a lot less than we used to. And I know that, I've had to take a hard look at that myself. Like if I'm not going to wear something, if it's not going to be worn more than, 25 times, if I can't see that this is an item that I'm going to keep wearing, I don't buy it anymore. And that just has to be the way that I approach it. Okay, next one. Um, Let's see. Women, so, mainly the topic, and like I said, this is how we came to this conversation, 12 years ago, is that we saw that women in Ghana were facing incredible discrimination, and women with disabilities in Ghana were facing even greater discrimination. Women in Ghana are often socialized from the gate to perform more gendered housework type roles. It's obviously influenced by cultural practices and beliefs, but people with disabilities were perceived and are perceived to actually be liabilities in the workplace, that is. And so there's this false negative perception about their abilities, and women with disabilities who have intersecting identities faced even more severe and difficult challenges. Women with disabilities were you know, marginalized from work. A lot of times, if they did have jobs and they had ambulatory disabilities, public transportation isn't designed to be accessible. Buses don't have lifts in many areas where somebody who has a walker, a cane, a wheelchair would be able to even get onto the transportation. And so the public transportation, the buses would just go right by them. So even getting to work was a challenge. The intersection of gender, disability, and poverty, the cultural practices, negative perceptions about abilities, all created a, a, a negative, horrible, perfect storm for really leaving women with disabilities in a very difficult place. Women who had disabilities themselves and the mothers of children with disabilities um, were really terribly on the periphery. So we decided that Make Fashion Clean was going to be one of our approaches to help. And we knew that it needed to be a multifaceted and multi-pronged approach, but that was sort of where we started. We started with a little social enterprise. So next slide. All right. There has been the good news is that there has been some movement on disability uh, rights in Ghana. It hasn't all been um, uh, stagnant. There was the Persons with Disability Act in 2006. It was well-meaning and done with great intentions. The implementation has not been fully recognized or realized. A lot of the language in the legislation is rather ambiguous. There are some national youth employment programs, but they are also not compatible with individuals with disabilities at this time. So while there's some momentum, it hasn't fully been implemented. There's some vagueness to it, and there's some gaps in what's out there. Um, in 2008, the unemployment rate for people with disabilities in Ghana was 45%, which is just astronomical, completely segregated and often marginalized from meaningful work. And David Bluestein, who some of you know, he was a mentor to me. He was my dissertation chair years ago. And, you know, I know the Aftermath Learning Lab, Make Fashion Clean, and the MFI Foundation. We see deep value in meaningful and decent work. So we felt that this was a really important statistic to share. Next slide. So MFC, MFI, the mission is really about inclusive work. It's about creating job training opportunities. And we view a lot of the participants as artisans. They view themselves as artisans. They're creating beautiful products, beautiful clothing. Um, a lot of them, as I said, were predominantly women, almost all a person with a disability, and parents of children with disabilities. We created the partnership to address the harms that we saw from secondhand clothing being offloaded into Ghana. Next slide. So, MFC, MFI, and all, we have job training, programming. I'll say more about that in a little bit. We work towards environmental sustainability on both research and advocacy. We work towards health justice on research and advocacy. My colleague D.L. Lundberg is a public health is a public health advocate and researcher, has been involved right from the beginning in 2012. Matilda has trained hundreds of women, and the undergraduates and graduate students who have been assistants and interns with us from schools out in the West Coast. Sorry about that. from schools out in Washington State, from Boston University, from Boston College. They've all been part of research and interning around environmental and health justice research and project work. Next slide. So how do we work on these goals? Well, for the um, uh, challenge or the job opportunities goal, we are looking to create and generate job opportunities and job employment through a creative economy. And we think that the MFC social enterprise is part of a really growing and important creative economy. We have folks that are with us with short and long-term paid employment and paid training positions where they'll graduate with a certificate in their area of training, or they'll stay on and be part of the MFC workshop. We're looking to improve sustainability, again, both environmentally and broadly. We do a lot with recycling and upcycling denim. I do a whole talk on like denim, the dangers of denim, which I'll tell you a few things about in this. But denim is a really intense product. It's intense on the pre-consumer side. It's intense on the consumer side when we're using it. And it's an intense product. It's an intense textile on the post-consumer side. So upcycling denim is very important to MFC, and it's something that we work on. And we want to divert as much as we can from landfills. Again, just to reiterate that landfills in the United States have, and in the global north, frequently have great or at least suitable engineering technology to help mitigate, whereas that is not the case in the global south. And we do a lot of work on health justice. We know that in these landfills that don't have the mitigation strategies, there's air pollution. It creates, negative health outcomes for women and people that are living around there, for people in the community, whether it's respiratory, whether it's, air pollution, respiratory related, water and land related. The species, including the human species, are negatively infected by the decomposing textiles in the landfills. Next slide. So, just giving you a little walkthrough of one of the, a process for us is, used clothes in the United States and Canada are recovered. I'll use the air quotes for recovered. They are, like I said, 66% end up in landfills in the US, and that's just using US as a case study. About 15% of discarded textiles are just incinerated, which goes into the air. That's an air pollution, air quality issue. And the remainder of them are considered to be like donated or, uh, gifted to other parts of the world. Some of these gifts are considered to be trade. We're working on an article right now on the global textile trade, and calling it trade is a bit of a misnomer because uh, a lot of times there isn't a trade, and a lot of times countries are being forced to accept these donated textiles um, without much say in the process. And a lot of times other really desperately needed support is tied to them accepting the textiles. So recovered, step one, recovered. Step two, that's a picture of Matilda actually. Deconstructing the clothing, and beginning to turn it into something else. Artisans upcycle it. Um, and then MFC has some channels at which they sell the products to try to recover some costs and make a little profit so that the people that work there can enjoy a decent quality of life. Individuals that work at MFC have health insurance, which is something that is very special and very important to them. Uh, what else do I want to say about that? And they all feel really important about the fact that they're reducing environmental and health harm and that it's something special and something unique that can be used by somebody else in the future, that they're creating something beautiful that's going to be used by someone else. All right, next slide. Oops, one more. Let me see. Go to the one with a bunch of pairs of jeans on it. Yeah, thank you. So again, I was going to tell you a little bit, and I know I'm going to wrap up soon. A little bit about the denim. In the United States, the average person has about 7 pairs of jeans just sitting in their closet. Um, and this is a lot more jeans than one can usually or does usually wear. Like I said, it's a water intensive process from the beginning. Um, and a lot of the dyes and the processes that go into the pre-consumer phase are negative for the environment while the jeans are being used. I'm not saying people shouldn't wear jeans either. I'm just saying that we need to think about it. Um, a lot of the processes while you're washing the jeans contributes to pollution in the water systems. And then the post-consumer phase is difficult too because denim doesn't break down very easily. It's durable, which is why it was, used in agriculture and such a great product for construction. And you know, people like jeans. So, but 7 jeans is a lot. And in the US, we actually throw out about 300 million pairs of jeans each year. So that's a lot of denim. And given its intensity, next slide, one of the things that we have focused on over the years has been uh, upcycling denim. And so you can see there's an example there of one of the bags that the folks that work at MFC have created. And they make backpacks and tote bags and dog beds and, all kind of pet products. Denim is a great source for upcycled pet products. But I love that bag. That's always been one of my favorites. And what's really special about that bag is that that's the bag that the women were able to create, that some of the women um, who had a really tough time being able to do the denim in those little strips before were able to create this bag once the Olin School of Engineering created an inclusive designed cutting machine for them so that they could like then produce these bags. So I love the bridging of that. And I just wanted to show you that bag because I love it. Next slide. So we upcycled jeans, upcycled t-shirts, cotton again, organic cotton is great. Non-organic cotton, not so great, but better than some of the other stuff that's out there to be sure. And we focus on denim and cotton for the most part. Next slide. Um, we've done a great job. I would love to just share that the team, Sarah Bibby, DL Lundberg, Matilda Lartney, everyone that's been part of the journey along the way has done a great job. But Matilda's definitely the forefront of all of this. MFI, which is the foundation that does the training, has trained over 375 women in the past decade, which is huge. It's just huge. Um, and Matilda and MFI and MFC do a lot of training and a lot of talks around Ghana on health, advocacy for persons with disabilities, all around the country. And MFC right now currently has 9 employees that work there. So we're very proud of that. And we're very proud of the work that they're doing. And we're really proud of the research, the interns, the products, and the momentum that's occurring there. Next slide. Matilda, again, if you, she wanted to create an upcycling studio. She wanted to be a hub in her community for positions, for artisans, for training, for paid training. So you don't just get trained, you get paid while you're being trained, for community programs. And she really has been just an advocate and a trailblazer for inclusion, environmental sustainability, and creativity in Accra, Ghana. And I just can't say enough about how special she is. Next slide. We're looking to reduce environmental impact. I know that our work, at least on, and again, it's multifaceted. So we're training, we're advocating, we're researching, we're running a little social enterprise. But we really want to divert more textile waste from landfills that are open air dumps. We just need to do that. We feel that that is a social justice issue. We also feel that in doing that, it generates living wages and decent work. And so we'd love to see more of that happening. Next slide. Like I said, 375 women, focusing on women with disabilities, skills and training seminars. Next slide. Matilda does all kinds of talks all around in training for person with disabilities. So, again, the work is designed risk of respiratory illness and air pollution, waterborne illnesses. These are like just um, absolutely necessary parts of the way that we would want to approach it in Ghana and in other parts of the world that are being impacted. Next slide. Our partnerships, we've grown into these different partnerships. MFI is a nonprofit community-based organization. As I told you, MFC is a social enterprise. It's an education, and it is a environmental justice. It's a workplace, and the Aftermath Learning Lab is a little lab that works in partnership with MFC and MFI. Next slide. Again, just more about Matilda's action and advocacy and activities. Um, the programs have trained women in soap making, seamstress, clothes making, upcycling of denim and upcycling of cotton, creating new products. Next slide. We have plans and visions for strategic partnerships. We just have a new grant from the OR Foundation to create more inclusive work and training for artisans in Ghana. We've had some small grants before. We had an Ignite grant in the past, and we've been working on stuff to really try to help move things forward. MFC and MFI are currently collaborating with Aftermath. And next slide. We have, over the years, we've had 26 undergraduate and graduate, because under the Ignite grant, we were able to have some graduate students working with us who have done internships and placements with MFC. Some of our students have even gone over and spent time in Ghana, in Accra. Last year we did, the past 2 years, but last year's we did the LEAPS conference, which is Leveraging Environmental Action Policy Stakeholders Conference, the LEAPS Textile Waste Conference, and we had 60 live attendees at the conference, and we've had 232 post views of the conference since. And so for a little small outfit, we're proud of that. Some of you have heard of or know about the Aftermath sculpture, which is a textile waste sculpture, which has been on tour for a couple of years now. It was in the McMullen. It was at the Smithsonian for a little run. It was at the Boston University Medical School campus, or Medical and Public Health campus. It was at the Boston University Charles River campus. It went to St. Mary's College in Maryland. It was in the Schiller Institute. And then it was most recently at Bridgewater State in their Martin Center for Social Justice. And so the Aftermath sculpture has actually had over 42,000 views in its tour around. And that's a lot of education and a lot of awareness that we're really excited about. And then we've had over 2,160 individual visitors come to the Textile Waste Facts online course and go through the course with us. So again, super excited about that. Um, Finally, my takeaways. Next slide. Um, we think that ambitious atypical collaborations, because our first notion wasn't that like promoting disability rights was going to be tied with environmental and health justice, but it absolutely is. Atypical collaborations are an essential part of regenerating nature on the planet. Colleges and universities, like the ones we've worked with, like new ones that will hopefully work with us, and especially students. Students are the key to helping manage climate change and pushing forward right action. Upcycling textiles helps protect land, sea, and all kinds of species, including the human species, and helping to create new technology, even stuff like the inclusive design cutting machine, will aid in the transition to a sustainable world. Finally, QR codes on the next slide if you're interested. And last slide. Way too many people to put onto this slide, but here's a few of the folks that are recently part of the team and part of the engagement. And again, thank you to Teresa Betancourt and Sunan for giving this opportunity. And thanks to all the folks on the slide. They're invaluable. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Julia. I'm going to turn it over to Grace because we have a question in the chat.
Okay.
Yes, the Q&A is now open if anyone has any questions to submit currently. So we have one question come up from an attendee, and their question is the social enterprise fully self-sustaining?
That's a great question. And each year it gets a little bit better. We do have to supplement with fundraising. But in the past, like 12 years, each year has become incrementally more closer to where we want to be.
Thank you. Another question came up. Where do the 375 trained women from the past 10 years work now? Do they start their own business?
So another great question. A lot of them are entrepreneurs and have started their own little businesses. I don't know specifically where all 375 work, but I know that some of them work together. Some of them have joined forces. And it really depends on what they were trained in. So if they were trained in seamstressing, they may be part of a tailor shop or a seamstress shop. Some of them are probably running their own. There's candle making, soap making. Like Matilda does all kinds of great like job training. So they'll have their own little businesses. They'll be part of existing businesses. But these are women that were essentially out of the workforce and who are now in the workforce and who are loving it and enjoying it and finding meaning and purpose in that and finding economic relief.
That's phenomenal. Another question that came up is the goal for the program to be sustainable without the nonprofit's oversight?
That is the goal. Yeah, that is the goal. And the nonprofit has, other strategic interests that it would like to pursue. The social enterprise has other sort of lines of maybe like creativity and products that it would like to pursue. Um, and so, at this point right now, the alliance and the partnership is really important, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And, I think each component has like sort of a strategic vision that will never be totally disaggregated because we'll always care and want to be like affiliated with each other, but there are definitely different pathways out there.
Great. Another question, are the accessible adapted tools like the garment cutting tool built in Ghana?
So at this point, no, because we haven't found a partner to do that on the ground there. And the tools that were designed that way were built here in the United States, actually in Boston area at the Olin College of Engineering. So we'd love to be able to expand that. That's one of the pathways. We'd love to be able to expand that on the ground over there.
It's amazing. Another attendee is wondering, I may have missed it, but how did you choose Ghana in the first place?
So these are all amazing questions. I don't think that we chose Ghana. Ghana todas. And that really came from an early and longtime collaborator and dear colleague of mine, D.L. Lundberg, who went who went to Ghana as an abroad experience, and just said, you know, when they came back, said, "Hey, let's do something," and was very involved while they were there. Has always been a consistent, like, strong thread in all of this along the way.
Looks like we have a couple more questions coming in. This is regarding government partnerships. Do you work collaboratively with a government partner, and who are your champions in this community?
That sounds like a professorial question. Matilda works with government agencies. Matilda does. The MFI Foundation does. It is not quite a straight line like it would be here in the US or like it would be in some parts of the world. And so the answer is yes. I would have to talk to Matilda more about what that looks like specifically. I would say the champions there on the ground are Matilda. The champions here would be um, people like, like Sunan Bhattacharya, people like Tom Childs. Tom Childs is like, I remember talking to him about MFC back in 2017, and he was like, "Oh, that's great. Like we should do something with this." And just, people like David Quigley who have been behind us in different design processes along the way. And again, like, dear Sunan, like putting us in touch with people all over the place. Like those are the champions. And so and the students are the champions. If you look at that last slide, you'll see, and those are just a few of them, like 26, right? So, we have somebody who's looking at this issue right now, textile waste, that is looking at this on the island of Puerto Rico. We have somebody who's looking at it in in China right now. Like, these are like students who come, they become part of our team, and then they go and they take it forward and they're champions for it. I have a student who was one of the BU interns who's like doing all kinds of work in China right now. And she got her mother involved, and they're doing all kinds of work.
All right. And let's see. Oh, we have a couple more questions coming in. This is great.
Oh,
How does MFI or MFC advocate for inclusivity for job training programs for people with disabilities?
how do they do it?
That would
Well, they do it on two levels, right? So they do it in the community, and they do it with local organizations, local community leaders, and they do it at the state level. And then they do it with the individuals themselves, who they do the training, and they have the talks and the conversations so that people can become, somewhat confident in their own advocacy and ask for what they need, which is never an easy thing to do. I mean, I'm still working on it.
Thank you. We do have a couple more questions, so thank you to everyone for their participation. So we have a question that says, I have an autistic child. Would it be possible for them to visit and train others with disabilities here in America?
Oh, I love that. I love that. I have been trying to get Matilda here since like 6, 7 years now. And I was really close right before the pandemic, and then everything got kind of shut down. And so I'm trying to do that again. It would I found that it would be easier to bring Matilda to do something like this to the UK. But my goal, our goal is to have Matilda come and do this here. And actually, I'll tell you that Matilda's daughter is autistic. So Matilda's very involved in this kind of process, and in working with children with that disability, or that different ability, so to speak.
Mhm. There are two questions that are similar regarding expanding the model to other regions. So one of our colleagues based in Sierra Leone had asked about any thoughts about expanding to Sierra Leone. And it would, it'd be interesting considering the culture and the community. And then similarly, any thoughts about expanding the model to other regions globally?
Um, I would, I think that that would be a conversation for the team, of course. But I would say absolutely reach out to us. We are looking for more partners. We are looking for, like I said, I think we like atypical and ambitious partners, but we also like adjacent and similar partners. Like and that makes sense too. That gives us scope and scalability, and I think that just creates a deeper and more effective impact, both on the human side and the planet side.
Yeah.
My email should be in there if anybody wants to contact me or Matilda for that matter. Because she's right there in Ghana. Please do so. Absolutely.
And then someone asked, what have you done to ensure the sustainability of the project?
Um, work, work my tail off. Trying to write some grants. Trying to write some more grants. We do have another article that's sort of in its last. We published an article a couple years ago, and we're in the sort of the final phases of another one. Like I said, it's on the global trade of textiles, um, uh, and we actually have a draft of a third one. So I mean, and that's that we know that that's important on the research and on the publication level. And so again, like we're trying to approach it on different levels. But yeah, fundraising, writing grants, getting the information out there, doing the LEAPS conference, the LEAPS conference, um, training people on the ground in Ghana, working with undergrads and grad students here and having them become sort of their own little like hub of like innovation.
Yeah. Well, that is all the questions that have been asked. Is there any other question anyone wants to ask? Please put it in the Q&A. Give everyone maybe another minute. Oh, I have two more. And I have a hand raised, I believe, as well. But I'll first see if I can. Teresa's raising her hand, so let me try to allow her to speak and answer her question.
Hi. Oh, this is
Hi.
fancy. You guys had the mute really for everybody. I was trying to unmute to ask a question. This was great, Julia.
Oh, thank you.
And I have a grant idea and just wanted to ask you if there's much in the literature about, randomly allocating meaningful work like this and then looking at mental health. And this is where Sierra
Mm.
Leone could be a very interesting research collaboration because we're actually involved in a collaboration with folks at MIT who are making locally sourced prosthetic devices. They're testing banana fibers and things like this for making prosthetic limbs. And it would be very interesting, one, to just research the mental health impact of having a good prosthetic. We've talked about that with a few folks there as research ideas. And then the other interesting allocation would be adaptive technologies plus meaningful work. I could see a really neat NIH grant there. So I just wanted your thoughts. And if you want to be introduced to some folks, we know many in Sierra Leone.
We would absolutely love that. And I mean, we have anecdotal evidence on this from the women, from the 375 women, and from folks that have been with us over the years. But this is something that is absolutely of deep interest to us. We would love to be introduced and to do whatever is necessary to move something like that forward.
Great. Yeah, I'll definitely make some introductions. And Rachel, don't we have Ghana in the Achieve Coalition?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we also have a research training grant at the lab and at BC that we should get Julia listed as a potential mentor because I could see someone pitching a proposal the focus of our Achieve training grant is implementation science, data science with a particular orientation towards children, youth, and families and mental health.
Hmm.
And I could see recruiting a Ghanaian PhD level scholar to apply to Achieve, be mentored by you, do a 1-year project, doing some of the legwork on this idea of studying mental health when you have adaptive technology and meaningful work. So yeah, find out more about Achieve. Rachel and I just had a meeting about it yesterday, and I know there are great faculty collaborators in Ghana and great scholars applying from Ghana.
Absolutely. We would be delighted. And I know that some of the women who are the mothers of children with disabilities have found great great mental health improvement by having this sort of community and opportunity.
Exactly. I don't know if Dr. Alan's on today, but he's been working in Rwanda with mothers who are raising a child with a disability. And these issues of poverty are such a big part of their mental health. So
Hmm.
having a model like this where people who live with disability or are mothers of children with disability or parents, caregivers of children with disability can train others in low resource settings to
Hmm.
find meaningful work and have that adaptive technology engineering piece, I think is so exciting. So let's definitely talk more. We've got a lot of connections for you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, thank you for coming today. And great job on the grid seminar, you guys. Nicely done.
Yes, well, we do have two more questions, and then we can wrap up after that.
Okay.
Um, so we actually have three questions, so we'll try to finish as fast as we can. First question is what disabilities are typically represented in the workforce, and any
Mm.
insights on how to include a broader variety of disabilities, such as mental health challenges?
Yeah, so a lot of the disabilities that of folks that have been part of the job training and that are currently part of the MFC shop are ambulatory physical disabilities or some sort of a mobility disability or different ability. Like I said, Matilda's daughter has a developmental disability, and there are mothers who are, the mothers of children with disabilities, which range from developmental and mental health and other types of disabilities. Right now, the shop has primarily focused, other than Matilda's daughter, on physical disabilities. But I think that given there's a real low level of awareness of mental health challenge in Ghana right now. I mean, there's a low level of physical disability challenge in Ghana, and that's not to be pejorative. It's just that's the state of it right now. Um, I think that would be an incredibly important piece to expand on.
Great, thank you. Two more questions. So the first is actually from one of our colleagues in Rwanda doing our Sujum Riango program. And they asked, how did you support these mothers, children with early disabilities in terms of healthy accessibility, which is quite extensive in Rwanda? That was their question.
How do we do that in Ghana?
Yes, I believe that's what it seems like.
So it really was not um, how do I say this? It wasn't a one size fits all model with the folks that we were working with. In fact, at one point, we actually did some fundraising to buy a transportation option so that we could pick up because, as I said, some of the buses will just go by and not pick somebody up on so that they can even get to their job. So we were able to get transportation, and we were able to actually hire a driver to go and pick up people to come and work at the shop. So that was like one, sort of piecemeal approach to supporting folks in actually getting to their job. Um, uh, a lot of times in terms of like supporting the children, I'm not sure the fine details of where children were while mom was at the shop or anything like that, but I can get more information on that. I think that in some cases, children came to the shop with mom.
Thank you. Well, the last question is someone from Sierra Leone, and they said community ownerships is challenging during project implementation. So regarding sustainability, are there community ownership and any plans of showcasing these upcycling work at national and international exhibitions so others can learn work?
I think, well, the aftermath sculpture itself would be like one side of showcasing it, which has, continued to travel and we hope will travel. And that's the aftermath. That's the like, this is what happens when you just, donate 81 or 82 pounds of your used clothing every year. I think we've kind of followed the more of a advertising the products on a business end, with Etsy and things like that. Like here's a really cool denim dog bed, or here's a cool denim backpack. But I think that there's got to be other ways for us to do that, and we've really struggled with that over the years. Like, how do we do this in a way that will be something that we can match so that the shop can actually produce what might be needed if we are successful in marketing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Those are all the questions that we had for today. I think I could speak for everyone at the RPCA and our partners. We really appreciate this presentation. And we will follow up for those who attended today with the recording link if anyone is interested, and this will be posted on our website. And thank you, Dr. DeVoy. This was really excellent. And we really appreciate everyone's participation and all the great questions. So,
thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.
all right,
Please be in touch.
Take care.
Thank you.